Hey guys, Ronnie here. This week's episode is brought to you by NelsieSpencer.com. Everything Nelsie Spencer and Losing It is on NelsieSpencer.com. There you can find links to Nelsie's book, movie, and classes. Take Nelsie's writing classes or get one-on-one coaching and sharpen your writing skills. Take classes like screenwriting class and novel writing first draft. If you'd like to support the show, grab a couple things at the Losing It merch store where we have mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, hats like this one, the one I'm wearing, and much more. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out links to NelsieSpencer.com and other things such as the links to our equipment we use and all our social handles in the description down below. And if you want to contact us, tell us you love us, hate us, want to tell us you're losing a story and possibly have Nelsie read it on the show, email us at losingitcontact@gmail.com.
Losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it. If you got a story, we don't care if it's happy or gory, so come share your losing it story with us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Losing It with me, Nelsie Spencer, the podcast where guests come on and guess what? Do they tell a finding it story? No, they don't. They tell a losing it story. And I am joined, as always, by my wonderful producer, Ronnie Whaley. Hey, Ronnie. Ronnie? Ronnie, hello. Oh, that's right. Ronnie's left me. Yes, he's left me for another podcast. Kidding. Very soon, we're going to be joined by our guest, Jesseca Reddell. More on her later. But the reality is, Ronnie is not with me any longer. He is focusing more on our other podcast, What If Nothing's Wrong? You can follow on all the socials, WINW Pod, and check us out on all the podcasting platforms. What If Nothing's Wrong? All right. That is the podcast where me and Ronnie and Heidi Haddad, who's a therapist, we talk about issues of the day, usually stuff related to mental health. But, you know, we might go down a tic-tac road. You never know. I'm glad you're here. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, you must, because we had this amazing guy, Nadia Dreyer from South Africa, from Namibia to be exact, who rescues seals, and go send him $5, $25, $35, $105 immediately. But anyway, it's just me now. So how have you been, Nelsie? I've been so great. Thank you for asking. Well, so what's new? What's new? Well, first of all, I'm going lighter with the hair. I'm going for more of a strawberry blonde. I'm growing it. I know, so exciting. And I got a new lipstick. Matches my nail polish. And my husband and I have been watching Goliath. I think it's season 4 with Billy Bob. It's yet another David E. Kelly show. My God, how many shows does he have? Does he ever have time to have sex with the beautiful Michelle Pfeiffer? I certainly hope so. I would make time for that. Yes, I would. So yeah, if you're not watching Goliath or you haven't watched seasons 1, 2, and 3, I didn't love season 3, loved 1 and 2, and this season 4 is killer. That, and I'm going to California. So excited. My daughter's out there. Some of my best friends are out there. I'm going to see my friend Kate. I'm going to see my sister-in-law and Sean, my friend Wendy, my friend Karen, who's been on this podcast. Kate's been on the podcast. I'm going to have vegan food. Yes, I am. Because you know what California has? Well, aside from a lot of actors and screenwriters and gaffers and grips and mudslides and the occasional earthquake and a few wildfires, they have a lot of vegan restaurants. So I'm very excited about that. But enough about that. You'll hear more about that. Let's get to our guest. Yet another funny, kind of quirky, former, I think she was in some very strict version of Christianity, which she will talk about. And she has a TikTok feed that is really funny, but also really smart and really informative. And she talks a lot to people who have sort of survived that kind of thing. So I know that her losing it story is going to be killer because she survived trauma. And guess what? Us folks who've survived trauma, we got good stories. So without further ado, here comes Jesseca Reddell. Because I don't have Ronnie with me or EJ, and I'm doing Jesseca via Zoom versus what we normally do. We just kind of started recording. So I'm going to now retro introduce her. So I'm so happy and excited that this very funny, very smart, very kind of smarmy, a woman with big ovaries, and I love that, said yes, because I found her on TikTok and she blew my mind. She made me laugh. She taught me stuff. She's brave and funny and smart. And I'm so glad she said yes. So I'm sitting here with Jesseca Reddell. Hi.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi. Ooh, don't make me tear up, That's so kind. Thank you.
But it's so true. It's so true. And we do have to take a moment here, even for those of you who aren't watching us on YouTube. The match between the hair and the flowers on her dress is a little scary. It's a little scary. It's scary in a good way.
The hair, the lipstick, the shirt, we got it all color coordinated.
You were working it. Look at my lipstick and my nails. I mean, come on. That's pretty impressive, right?
Beautiful. Yeah. Actually, that's really impressive. It's hard. If it makes anyone feel any better, there's just dirt on my fingernails.
That's it. That's it. You're done. That's the end of the episode. I really cannot tell. I can tolerate a lot, but
not dirty fingernails.
Not dirty fingernails. Did you just,
no matter how hard I try.
Did you just come from a day of dog walking?
Yeah, so I actually finished a little bit earlier than I had anticipated, but so my car got stolen last weekend, which I mentioned in passing.
That's right. Oh, honey, my God.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, it's unfortunate, but here's a little plug for Subaru. They have a service called Starlink, and they can remotely immobilize your car, and then they can send the location to the police. So
how cool is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, it was a total bummer, and it's been a massive hassle, but I was able to tell the police where my car was within 12 hours.
That is amazing. First of all, they disable it. So whoever got it, ha.
Exactly.
Fuck you, shithead. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Right. And then they know where it is.
Yeah. Exactly.
So cool. Yeah. And what kind of shape did it come back in?
The exterior was mostly fine. There was some damage to the interior, which was expected because they had to, I guess, hotwire it or do something. So they pulled some of the panels out of the front and the panel from the ceiling to use the wires. But all of that being said, it could have been a lot worse. I could have never gotten it back, or it could have been totally totaled
or stripped or whatever the heck they do.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Wow. And where in California are you?
I live in Oakland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyone that lives in Oakland is familiar with the saga of the stolen car. So.
Yeah, there's some dicey areas in Oakland. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, the area that I live in really isn't bad. It's just they go to areas that aren't necessarily bad to take cars that are in pretty good shape, or to look for catalytic converters. They couldn't get mine because it's a newer car, so it's caged, I think, or hidden or something.
Looking for catalytic converters. Who knew?
I knew.
I did not know
me. That. Yeah. So, the more you know, right? The more you know.
It's so funny. I lived in Manhattan for 30 years, and we always had a car because my husband, when I met him, he had a job where he had a company car. And then once you're used to having a car, and then you can go out of the city and blah, blah, blah. So we lived in Harlem for 8 years, and well, some stuff did happen to our car. We always seemed to end up with flat tires, but it was like, oh my God, it's a nail. So I don't know. But my car never got broken into until when we were in Harlem. And then one day I was down on the Upper West Side, not a very fancy neighborhood, but a nice neighborhood. And someone just broke my window and went in.
Lovely.
Yeah. Went in to steal a radio that I didn't even have. So it's like, remember the days where you would take your radio out so people wouldn't break into your car to take it? Like I didn't even have that kind of radio, but broken window. It's like, you little.
Yeah. Well, like it couldn't have been more than a month ago. I had taken some dogs up to a trail to walk them. And when I came back down, my back window was smashed. And like, there's nothing in my car that's valuable. One, because I live in Oakland. Two, because I walk dogs. So I just keep nothing that I want them to destroy in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I don't know. I hope you had fun. Like,
yeah. And was it just, they felt like smashing a window? Like, was it one of those?
I don't know. I mean, maybe my thought was that they probably thought there was something in there, or they thought that I'd have something valuable. And so they did it and then realized there's really nothing in there and kind of took off. I guess it could be really any reason, but that was sort of my best guess. If you're going to break a window, it's usually because you're hoping to get something out of it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thrill of breaking a window. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't usually break windows, but...
No, I don't either. Haven't done that. I don't know, for at least never. So are you a native Californian?
Yes, born and raised in California.
And Northern?
Northern California and the Bay Area especially. I've been kind of all over the Bay Area, but born here, raised here. I talk a lot about moving away from here, but I'm not sure that I could.
Because you're just, it's in your blood. It's who you are.
Well, one, I'm a big sissy when it comes to the weather. Two, I've lived here my whole life and I've lived in a very multicultural, diverse area that has a lot of things that I take for granted that I didn't realize I took for granted until I started doing a lot more traveling. For instance, I mean, a really easy one is I'm vegetarian. And yeah, of course that you can go to a grocery store anywhere, but vegetarian restaurants or vegetarian entrees are not.
They're not everywhere.
Widespread.
No, they're not.
And I've never really thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah. California was one of the first, because I haven't eaten mammals since 1975, which tells you that I'm really super old. And, but I've been vegan now for 2 years. So just under 2 years. Yeah. But being vegetarian in California, really, even in the 70s, like, easy. And yeah, so, but some, you go to Arkansas or you go to Texas or you go, some of these very meat heavy places, they're like, they don't know what you're talking about. Like, right. There's lard in everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even I've gone to places in California that are just outside of the Bay Area. So up north a couple hours or, down south a couple hours. And sure, you can make it work and it's still friendlier than it would be in a lot of areas of the country, but it's by no means what you can easily access in the Bay Area.
That's true. I think that people that live near big cities, whether it's San Francisco or New York or LA, we forget how spoiled we are because, I had Ethiopian last night. Oh, I'm going to have, right? It's like,
I can walk down one street in Oakland. I can walk down Grand and there's Ethiopian, Italian, Thai, Chinese, Mexican food obviously is huge here. There's like so many Spanish cuisine on one street. Yeah. My cousin always tells the joke about being with a bunch of friends and she's in Manhattan and they're all ordering takeout and somebody's like looking through their menus of takeouts and somebody's like, oh, should we have Afghani? And somebody in the group's like, oh, I had Afghani last night. It's like, only in a big city is that going to happen. Or in Afghanistan, so
I guess.
Tired of this.
So, not Afghani again.
Right. And some of my friends that live out of the state are like, I've never even had that once in my life. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I remember when I went and visited my brother who lives in San Francisco and had Burmese food, not once,
so good,
but twice in a 5-day visit. It's so good.
Was it Burma Superstar?
I think it was.
So good. My favorite restaurant.
One of the places we went when you have lotus tea and they actually give you a lotus blossom and the lotus blossom opens up in the glass.
Amazing.
Oh my God. It's so cool.
I love it. I eat Burmese food as often as I can get my hands on it.
So good.
It's so good.
And you don't have a lot of Burmese food in New York, but you do in San Francisco.
Yeah. So surprisingly, not necessarily surprisingly that there's a lot in San Francisco or even Oakland and Alameda now. But it does surprise me that it wouldn't be in New York.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, but it's so yummy. So you're a native Californian, you're a Northern California gal. You don't see yourself moving because you can't be too far from Burmese food. But how long have you been a dog walker?
I have been a dog walker for about 3 years now, I want to say. I used to work in finance.
Wow.
Boring.
Oh, wow.
So I went to college here at a place called Mills College, and
one of my best friends went to Mills. One of my best friends went to Mills.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm bummed out because they had so much financial difficulties that they're sort of, I don't know exactly what's happening. They're becoming like a non-degree conferring institution, but they're teaming up. I think it's with Northeastern to do some other stuff. But anyway, I loved my time at Mills. I thought it was great. The campus is beautiful. It's like Narnia in the middle of sort of like East Oakland. Wow. But I majored in economics. And so sort of the natural path after school was like, well, I guess I'll try my hand at finance. And I hated it. I really hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just sitting in a cubicle all day.
Yeah. And look, I don't know you. I feel like I know you well because I think that's what TikTok does, where you're talking right to me and
Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, Jesseca. Okay, go on. Yeah. What? Right. So I don't really know you, but it doesn't seem like an obvious fit for me that you would go finance. What, and was it because you were good at math? Was it because you were like, oh, you can make a shit ton of money in finance? What got you there?
To be honest, I'm not spectacular at math, but I was really good at statistics. And basically, so when I had gone to college, I was a late resumer to college. I went back when I was 23 because I had grown up in a household that was super chaotic and I was basically the parent. And so it didn't really even cross my mind to think that I could go to college. I wanted to, but I thought, I don't know how to do this. I have nobody around me that's gone to college or knows anything about it.
Yeah.
And all I wanted was to be able to get a job that I could support myself and not have to be constantly in like a financial crisis, basically. And so I went back to school at 23.
Good for you. Good
in a bit.
For you. Really?
And it was, when I went in, I was like, I don't know what I want to major in. I just want to get a degree so that I can get a good job. And I thought maybe I would do something along pre-law isn't a major, but there was a certain section of classes you could take that were like political, legal, and economic analysis. And it was basically...
I just got a headache when you said that. I just political, legal, and economic. My brain just went, ow.
Yeah,
ow.
It was,
What?
But I was fortunate enough to, just by pure luck, I was paired with an advisor who was an economics professor, and she is one of the biggest advocates for her students that I've ever met. And I just feel so lucky that I was paired with her. So I kind of went in there and I just told her, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I really just want to be able to get a good job and support myself. I have come from a family with no college degrees, no experience, none of it. And I have 4 little sisters and I want to show them that there's a way out. Oh, sorry. I didn't expect to get emotional.
Honey. Oh, honey, I got emotional too. Oh, my goodness. Let me just say that this is why I love Jesseca. This is why I wanted to have her on the show, because her TikTok feed is really honest and it's really brave. And I feel like you're this interesting mix of vulnerable and really tough, which is part of, I think, part of sometimes what happens when we grow up with a lot of trauma, which we're going to hear about later. But yeah, so you had four younger sisters that you had the wherewithal to be able to say, I want to show them that there's another way to go.
Yes. So I spoke with my advisor and she said, why don't you try economics? And I thought, fuck no. That was literally my first thought. I was like, I am not good at math. And so I will not be doing that. And then I did anyway, which will factor into my story a little bit later, but I did anyway. And then I left college and just thought like, where can I apply with an economics degree? And it was just sort of the next step. And I thought, I don't really know what I want to do. So maybe I'll sort of figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
And so I tried it for a while and I just quickly found out that sitting in a cubicle all day long was not going to work for me.
Yeah. And so bravo for you that you were like, not working. You know what? Like from finance to walking dogs. I mean, couldn't be more different. Right. And you know, and so do me a favor. If you can explain a little bit, how would you describe your TikTok feed? Because I know that it's called your mother of dogs, right?
I was.
You were mother of dogs.
I changed my username to a moniker that was bestowed upon me by my followers. So I'm now Queen of the Heathens.
Oh, right. Queen of the Heathens, which I love so much.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Right.
So that's
and she's like,
it is.
Hello, Heathens. You're always greeting your followers.
That's the intro.
But so how would you describe it? Because it's hard. I mean, you can describe it well, I'm sure.
It's sometimes I'm smart, sometimes I'm funny, and sometimes I'm a pain in the ass. And I think that kind of sums it up. So I do talk a lot about, at least when I started, I talked a lot about the Bible and biblical sort of, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. Things that you didn't know the Bible said, basically, or things that you thought the Bible said that it actually doesn't say. And things that you thought you knew were true about the Bible that actually aren't. And again, we can get into this a little bit more, but that was sort of where I started. And then it's kind of gone on from there to also be a place where I talk about feminism, where I talk about, like my own experiences with really anything.
Right.
But also, I kind of focus on those two things.
Yeah. And you talk about, the one that pulled me in was one of the things she does is your followers send you church signs, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny because TikTok knows me. TikTok's like, you know what, Nelsie, you're going to like this one where, there's like a sign outside a church that says,
oh God, so
get on
things.
Your knees for God, whatever. I mean, and she reads them so deadpan right into the camera and they're so funny.
Oh man, that was an accident actually. Like I didn't expect those to take off. I had been sort of burnt out from posting. And I had taken a few days off and I thought like, okay, I need to interact with my followers again with the algorithm, social media. And so I thought my followers will get a kick out of some of these signs that I found. And boy, did they. And so did apparently like several million other people. It was, I just sat back and was like, what is happening? Like, I did not anticipate this at all.
Right. Because the signs themselves are funny because you feel like you cannot believe that this is outside a church and they don't get the double entendres or it's like one sort of sexual innuendo after another, all in these church signs, and which is really funny. But then the way that Jesseca delivers it, like totally deadpan, and then the little comments that you make about it, priceless.
I genuinely never thought I was funny until I got on TikTok and people were like, oh my God, you're so funny. And I was like, I'm just being myself.
One of my favorite comments that you responded to was like, somebody wrote, "How can you read that stuff and not laugh and just be so deadpan?" And you were like, growing up with incredible trauma or something like that was your answer.
It's a groundbreaking technique called childhood trauma. Yes. You may have heard of it.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I was like,
my sense of humor it's there, but it's like, it's broken. I don't laugh at the same things that everybody else laughs at.
Oh my God.
I know that they're funny. I think they're funny, but it doesn't cause that laughter response for whatever reason.
I can't tell you how many times I'll be in a movie and I'll just guffaw at something that nobody else has laughed at. Have you ever watched seen the movie The Skeleton Twins? With
no.
It's Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader. It's really good. It's really good. I
struggle to sit through movies.
Well, I recommend it. Really dark, really funny.
Perfect.
And it's one of exact. Sign me up.
Say less. Yeah.
So yes, you must watch it. But that's one of those movies where, I just laugh really loud, and I just know that most people that are watching this did not guffaw at that moment, because it's about siblings with childhood trauma and how they both try to kill themselves on the same day or something like that. It's like she said, laughing. I know suicide is not funny, not at all. And I apologize. I should have had a warning for that. But this is a movie that's about trauma, about people that struggle with depression and suicide, and they manage to be very honest and very vulnerable and make you laugh about it.
Yeah.
And because I'm really close to my siblings and we went through trauma, it really spoke to me because it's about that sibling relationship that sometimes with a traumatic childhood, that sibling relationship gets even stronger because it needs to.
Yeah.
Which I feel like
when people ask me, like, what really makes you laugh? If this doesn't make you laugh, like what really makes you throw your head back and laugh? And I say, my sisters. We speak our own language when we're together. It's like impossible for me to invite people over because they have no idea what's going on.
Right.
And we're falling all over ourselves, like dry heaving with laughter.
Oh my God.
Because we're all girls, 5 girls.
Heaven.
Yeah.
Heaven.
Yeah.
Heaven.
It's the best.
Oh my God. All right. So,
okay.
I do say this with a lot of my guests. I say, oh my God, we could chat forever. And it is true because I find someone, I go, I want them on my podcast. Like I just get that we're going to connect. But I do know that you have a losing it story for me, and I would love to hear it.
Okay. Well, funny, haha, that we should talk about suicide. Not really. This is going to be a story about how I lost my boyfriend and then lost my religion.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a double loss,
Okay.
Sorry. Also, I use humor to deal with everything. So I'm probably going to laugh. I'm going to cry. We're just going to run the gamut.
Yeah, well, let's run the gamut. Let's laugh. Let's cry. Yeah. Let's laugh at stuff we should be crying at and vice versa. Yes. Yeah, I've been there.
I mean, it's how I cope. It's always been how I've coped. So just a warning, I obviously don't find any of this stuff funny, but dark humor is how I make it through life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think the people that listen to this podcast, they get that.
Yeah,
they do.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I just don't want anyone to feel, offended or like I'm treating it flippantly, because certainly not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a survival technique.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit more about my childhood. I'll try not to stay here for too long. I grew up obviously in the Bay Area with my sisters and my parents, and my mom was a alcoholic for my entire life. My stepfather is still in my life, but he definitely had some anger issues and there was some abuse, we'll say. And we also grew up in a very fundamentalist Christian church. So technically it was non-denominational, but the best way I can describe it is charismatic, Pentecostal. If you've seen people on TV or on the internet where they're speaking in tongues and people are falling over, slain in the spirit and all of that. That was my church every Sunday.
Wow.
Yes. I also went to a Christian school that was not really a school. It was a learning center, and we just worked out of workbooks. The teacher wasn't really a teacher. She just was a supervisor, and we scored our own work. And all of the workbooks were, of course, written by young earth creationists. One of our science textbook workbooks actually said that the proof that evolution wasn't true was that the Loch Ness monster existed.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not couldn't make it up.
Problematic on so many levels. Okay.
So many levels. And there was like little comics in these workbooks, and of course all of the characters were like love joy and do good and all of these things. And there was African American family and there was an Asian American family, and both of these families went to separate churches with other people from their
race.
Right.
Yeah.
So
because we all know that God wants to keep all the races separate and
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Segregation, apparently.
Yeah. Wow.
I do not support that.
No, we don't support that.
So I grew up in this environment, and I went to youth group every Wednesday. We had Bible study at our house. I went on missions trips. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish I could take it back. All of this. So I was very, very indoctrinated into this from a young age. I was told that the world was going to end in my lifetime.
Wow.
And Jesus would be coming back. There would be a tribulation, and more likely than not, I would be tortured and killed for my faith.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like one of my earliest memories is being taught this and just being like, well, shit. Jesus. Literally.
Well, shit, so, Jesus. Come on.
God.
Can we talk about this?
Come on. Like, no one even asked my opinion. And I remember I used to tell my mom, like, I just want to like grow up and kiss a boy. Like, and now I'm like, no, never mind. But yeah, like, so anyway, this is what I grew up in. It was very intense. But I sort of always struggled to feel like I connected with any kind of higher power. I didn't have this connection that I felt like everybody else did. I wasn't being given these gifts, like the gift of tongues or the gift of whatever. And so it was hard for me because I was growing up in a family where I couldn't rely on my parents. And I was seeking out obviously love. And I was being told that there was this God that was all loving and all knowing and all caring and wanted to be there for his children. And yet it was like talking to a brick wall all of the time.
Right. You're like, hello.
I also had,
hello.
Exactly. And like this led, all of my childhood led to undiagnosed anxiety, depression, and ADHD, and all of these things I didn't get diagnosed with until much later in life. But of course, in the church I was in, everybody thought it was just like, a spirit of depression, a spirit of anxiety, whatever. And it could just be cast off in the name of Jesus. Meanwhile, like I'm counting how many times I chew on each side. And if I don't like have even numbers, I'm going to have like a conniption. So it was an interesting upbringing.
Yeah. So pretty early on, one of your coping mechanisms was sort of a little bit of OCD with the chewing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That was just one of the sort of symptoms that I was showing. But yeah, certainly there was a lot going on that was not being treated at all. So I grew up in this environment. I believed in it. I just didn't feel like connected with it. And so that was also quite hard, especially as you get older and you start to experience more things and meet more people. And you begin to wonder how it's possible that all of these people could be going to hell forever, but not you.
Right. And how insular was your life? You know what I mean? How much was it pretty cultish? Was it like I just was, God, I was just listening to, I don't know, some Mormon thing. And now I can't even remember what it was. But it was all about, it was a podcast about, somebody who ended up in a plural marriage. It was on that podcast called Risk, and how this woman ended up in you told me about Risk.
Yes,
you told me about Risk.
It's so good.
Right.
It's so good.
I'm listening to a Risk episode, and it's a woman who ends up in a plural marriage, and it's a great episode, which you probably listened to, and she just was like regular Mormon, and then somehow she moved to some town, and then the next thing you know, she's surrounded by everybody. If everybody's drunk the Kool-Aid metaphorically, how would you know that what they're telling you isn't true? So was that how it was for you, that everybody around you? Yeah.
And it's dangerous because you are told by the people that your parents, your leaders, the people you trust and depend on for truth. You're told basically that everything that goes against the Bible is sent by the devil to deceive you, basically.
Right. And their version of the Bible,
their version of the Bible,
special
absolutely.
version of the Bible. Right.
Absolutely. And so things like science or evolution, or science is evolution, got it. But that's all meant to deceive you, and it's not true. And so you're constantly feeling like any information that isn't what you already believe is deception.
Yeah.
And so you have to be on guard against it all the time. And it's one of the many reasons I was so hypervigilant as a younger child.
If the rapture's coming and you're going to be tortured before you're killed. Wait a minute. This really doesn't sound right. If I've got to do all this stuff while I'm alive and don't get to do all this stuff, because when the rapture comes, isn't good shit supposed to happen? I mean, come on.
Well, they couldn't even agree when the rapture was going to happen, how it was like, it might be before the tribulation, might be after. You might get to be raptured and not suffer, but you might also have to suffer. And then if you deny God, then off to hell for you. Wild.
I was lucky in that both my parents were atheists, in that I wasn't indoctrinated with any of that stuff. Some other stuff happened, and plenty of parents that do believe in God or have a spiritual life or are it's all fine and wonderful. It's not like somebody being an atheist doesn't automatically make them a great parent or a great person. But I didn't get that stuff pressed on me. I didn't walk around with the fear that God didn't love me, or that God was watching me, or God was judging me. And you had that constantly.
Sure. And you also grow up being taught that you are inherently bad and inherently sinful, and that your flesh, your body is bad and sinful. And so it also teaches you very much to sort of battle against these parts of yourself that you think are bad, basically. And so it's a very disassociative process, at least it was for me, because every impulse you have, every desire, every thought, it's seen as sinful, as opposed to just like a natural happening that like take, for instance, like any kind of sexual attraction or desire or impulse, you automatically think that it's bad and sinful. And so you're constantly trying to deny these thoughts and feelings, when in reality you should be being taught that they're normal, and then also like when they're appropriate to express, or how to express them, or like things like that, right? And so instead you're just constantly hating yourself for things that are natural. And it's just not a great way to raise a kid.
No.
To teach them that like you're born bad, there's nothing you can do, and you deserve to die just for being born. Like
yes, you're born bad. What?
Cool.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Versus,
well, then why am I here? Like, please.
Right? Yeah. Can I just get the hell out of this
Beam me
world?
up, Scotty.
Yeah,
like,
right. Beam me up, Scotty, because I didn't sign up for this.
Right. And that's the thing, is that you're taught that like this life really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the afterlife. And really the only way that you can be made righteous or pure or whatever you want to call it is through Christ once you're dead. And that's why I refer to it as a death cult so frequently, because no one's getting into church right now and drinking Kool-Aid because they want to, get on a spaceship to another planet. But it is very much this sense that like none of this matters. And so you're just waiting until you get to go be with Jesus. And this life is just sort of like a stopover point.
Yeah, it's a very long stopover. Very long. Yeah.
And so it's just very unhealthy in my not so humble opinion.
No, not humble, because you know your shit. When let me tell you, when Jesseca talks about the Bible, she knows what she's talking about. What her religion said versus what's really there. I mean, you've studied a lot. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But when I was in the church, my dad thought that he was going to be an apologist. And so he had all of these books on apologetics, and he tried to teach me a lot about it, and I would read it. Because for me, what happened was I thought, well, okay, if I can't feel it, if I can't have this connection, maybe that's okay, but I can prove it, then I know that it's true and I can believe it. And then I don't have to feel it, right? Like if I have the evidence for it, then fine.
Right. Yeah.
I'll
So I'm talking to God. God's
feel it.
not talking back, but I have all this evidence here that God is real.
Right. So long as I can figure out if it's objectively true, then it's okay if I don't feel things, because you're also taught that like feelings aren't everything, emotions aren't everything, and you're taught that your emotion can deceive you. The heart is deceitful above all things. Yeah. And so you really don't trust yourself at all. So all of these things that are saying like, hey, something isn't right here, you're like, no, that's the devil. That's the devil. And I can't listen to that, because if I listen to that, then I'm blind and I'm following the devil. That's the short version of that. So yeah, I studied pretty extensively. I mean, when I was I must have been 14, 15, I taught a class to the elders of my church, about the Bible.
Wow.
And so when I then went off to college, well, actually, no, I'm sorry. Let me back up. So after high school, I just moved out of my house and moved 3 hours away. I was like, I can't do this. Gotta go. And eventually I moved home and I met this man named Xavier. And I met him through a friend. Actually, I met him because we were trying to arrange a purchase of illicit substances for a rave that a bunch of us were going to.
Okay.
And
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not know what the end of that sentence was going to be.
I know. I was like, how do I put this?
You were trying to score some Molly,
well,
maybe something.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we can be upfront, it was ecstasy.
Absolutely.
And
what are they going to do? Come and arrest us?
Right.
No, they're not listening. They're not paying attention. It was a long time ago. So don't worry. Yeah.
So, and the thing is that like I had some connections, he had some connections, and we had this friend who was in the middle that was like, I don't want to be involved. And I was like, great, but you want the drugs. So, okay. So she linked the two of us up and we got to be friends. And then he and I ended up dating. And he was a really lovely, wonderful human. He was the kind of guy who would make friends with unhoused people, and when it was raining he would be like, I need to go take a jacket to my friend so and so, or like, I have extra sandwiches, so I'm going to go give them to my friend so and so because I haven't seen him for a while. I want to make sure he eats. Like,
wow,
that kind of thing.
And you by this time it sounds like you'd completely turned your back on the church.
Not yet.
No. Okay.
Not yet. I wasn't as heavily involved, but I certainly still believed that was probably correct, and that like ultimately I'd probably end up going back to it wholeheartedly. But I was still I was just sort of in that middle ground where I believed that was probably correct, but also I was just at a point in my life where I'm kind of experimenting and doing things. But ultimately thinking like I'll probably go back there, and also feeling tons of guilt and stress all of the time.
Okay. Yeah. So you're breaking the rules. Weird. You're scoring some ecstasy. You're going to a rave. You've got a boyfriend.
Yeah. And I had boyfriends before, and this was certainly not the first time that I had gone to a rave or done drugs. But again, it was definitely this like sort of split, right? Where one half of me is like, all of this is probably right, and I'm probably going to end up going back here. But then the other part of me is like, I want to live my life and do things, and I'm really tired of not feeling good in this situation either. And I was also really in the middle of a bunch of trauma that I had never healed or worked on, because I was 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was just like a lot of just trying to figure everything out. But certainly I would have told you that I still believed in God and Jesus and all of that. And he was a Catholic, not like devout in the sense like how I grew up, but certainly would have identified as Catholic. His family was very Catholic, all of that. So anyway, we were together for about a year. And in that year, we met right before he was moving to China to work. Yeah. Yeah. His uncle owned a hotel in China, and Xavier basically was trying to figure out what he wanted to do in life. And before he had met me, he thought, I'll go work at this hotel in China for a couple of months, travel a little bit, get some experience. If I like it there, and it's his uncle, so he can give me a full-time job or any of those things. So naturally, we meet pretty soon before he is leaving and decide, let's go for it. Yeah. So he went off to China for a few months. We stayed in touch, stayed together, and he came back about 3 months or so later. And in that 3 months, I had gotten a full-time office job. My partying had sort of died down a little bit. Like I was still doing things, but going out, but it wasn't as intense. I certainly wasn't doing drugs all the time and, all of that. And when he came home, he was still sort of in that partier mode, was going out a lot more than I was. Also, he wasn't working full time at that point because he had just come home. And as we went along, I sort of discovered that he had some issues with alcohol. Now, he wouldn't drink all the time, but when he did drink, it was just to excess. And like to the point of just like passing out on whatever couch was nearby. And so it created an issue for us. But again, I hadn't dealt with my trauma from an alcoholic mother.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of not surprising, because when oftentimes if we grow up with one alcoholic parent, there's some part of us that finds someone with a similar issue because it fits our puzzle piece, so to speak.
Yep.
And yeah.
It's the comfortable chaos, right? You're like, I'm only
home.
understand
I'm
chaos.
Home.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen next. This is really scary. It feels like home.
But I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we certainly had some issues with that because I felt like I couldn't trust him, but also I really cared about him. And when you're that age, you really think that like people are going to change.
Right. And you're 20 and you take it personally, especially when it comes to alcoholism. If you don't understand if you don't understand that it's a disease, if you don't understand how certain brains react, and they're actually I'm not a doctor, but some school of thought is that an alcoholic's brain reacts differently to alcohol than a regular person's brain. So, and it just feels like, why are you doing this to me? And because what do you know? You're 20 years old, and yeah.
Well, and that's how I felt growing up my whole life, was like my parent never picked me. They always picked alcohol. And
right. So
as I got older, I realized exactly. And as now I'm 32 now, and I've done a lot of therapy and continue to do therapy. And I've learned a lot of those things, that it's not as easy as just like deciding not to drink for these people. It's just not. And so, so we had arguments, we had issues, but we stayed together. I still really cared about him. I wanted us to have a future together. And he eventually got a job, but it was a super sort of like paper pushing job that he didn't like. It was creating some issues for him. I could tell that he just wasn't particularly happy with his life. But certainly I thought he would sort through it and figure it out and, keep on keeping on. The thing about tragic events is that it's very tragic events, or things that you're like, this only happens on TV. Like I distinctly remember having this thought, but in any event, so as summer came around, I turned 21 in May, and let's see, and I turned 21 in May, and then in late July, we had gotten an invite to go out to karaoke with some of his friends. So we did. He told me he was going to drive that night. He would be designated driver. He had a really big Suburban. So even if I wasn't drinking, it would have been challenging for me to drive his car at that point. Now it would be fine. But again, 21. And so we went, we did karaoke. It was fun. We went back to his friend's house and he got really drunk and like fell asleep on the couch. And I was really mad. I was really mad. One, because I was just tired of it happening over and over again. Two, I was drunk, so everything was elevated, obviously. And again, 21 years old, lots of unresolved trauma. So one of his friends had asked for a cigarette or something to that effect, and I went to try to get it out of his pocket. He tried to like push me away because he was half asleep or passed out or whatever, and I just lost it. And he and I got into a huge fight, massive, like the biggest fight we had ever had. And I distinctly remember being so mean, because I just hit a point where I was just so frustrated and done. And I generally make it a rule, even at a younger age, to try not to go for the jugular when I'm fighting with someone, because I know it can do a lot of damage. And because I grew up in the household that I did, I'm really good at doing that.
I was going to say, did you grow up with a lot of verbal abuse? Was there verbal abuse in your house? Yeah. So when you grow up with that, you're really good at it. You're really good at it.
Like I can end an argument, but it might also end the relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Like we might not recover from like what I say.
Yeah.
And so it's always been something that I'm really conscious of because I know how damaging these things can be. And for whatever reason, that night, it was like a perfect storm of just everything. And I unleashed. And it ended up, I mean, we were fighting in the parking lot of this apartment complex. And like, I've never fought with someone in public like that. I, to this day, have never done it again. It was just awful. And anyway, we ended up going home. Eventually things calmed down a little bit. I had taken his keys because I was like, I'm not letting you drive away from here. Like, no matter how angry I am, like, I'm not going to let you go kill yourself, like, driving your car somewhere. So his friends drive us back to my house. I was living away from my parents at the time, and he stayed over. And as the night progressed and we sort of sobered up, we sort of made amends. And, he said something to the effect of like, when I thought that I had hurt you, all I wanted to do was go home, get my dad's gun, and kill myself. And I was extremely shaken up by that statement because it's a very specific thing to say. It's not just like, I just wanted to like jump off a cliff, right? Yeah, or something like that. Like, I say stuff like that all the time, obviously in like jest. But this is extremely specific, and it really freaked me out. I think it would freak anybody out.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have to promise me that that's like,
not going to happen. That's
not a thing. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know where that came from exactly, but I need to know that that's not actually going to occur. And he's like, I'm just being dramatic. Like, of course not. Like, da da da. But it didn't sit right with me. It didn't sit right with me. And in the morning, he was supposed to go do some things, and then he had a shift at work at this job that he had just started at a restaurant with his best friend. And at this time, I lived with his best friend and his best friend's girlfriend. So we were all sort of very close
tight-knit group.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he gave me a kiss on the forehead. He said, all right, I'll see you later. And I said, okay. And off he went, and I just sort of went on about my day. I don't even really remember what I did earlier in the day. because it was just a normal day. I fell asleep at some point, and then I got woken up by a phone call, and it was from his sister. And his sister and I never really talked. Like occasionally we would talk if we saw each other, but she certainly had never called me before. We didn't have a relationship like that. And she asked me if I knew where Xavier was. And I said, I don't know. He's supposed to be at work. I think he's at work. And she was like, he's not at work, or like, I don't think he's at work. And I'm like, well, let me call his friend really quick and see, because his friend was also working that night. And so I got off the phone, I called the restaurant, and I asked for his friend. And I was like, hey, is Xavier there? And he said, no, why would he be here? And I said, well, because he told me he had a shift there. He said, no, he's not on the schedule for tonight. And I was like, you need to come home right now. Like something is very wrong. I don't know what it is, but you need to come home. And so he did. And in that time, I had started calling his friends to see if maybe he was with them. And as I'm calling his friends, I'm getting a very similar response from each of them. So I would call and I would say, hey, is Xavier with you? His family is looking for him. We don't know where he is. And they would say, no. And I would ask them, okay, have you heard from him at all today? And they all said, yeah, he called us earlier to apologize for last night, to tell us that he was sorry for behaving that way, and that he loved us all, and that he wasn't going to be seeing us for a while.
Jesus.
And as I am making these calls, I mean, it's just like, it's like I know what has happened, but I can't accept that has happened yet. And so I'm making these calls, and I'm really starting to panic. And I get a call beeping in, and so naturally I pick it up, and it is the police department.
Oh, honey.
And they're asking, sorry.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Of course.
Asking if they can stop by and speak with me. And I obviously said yes. And at this point, it's like, there's not another explanation, right? There's not another, there's just not. And so I wait for the police. And a cop comes over, he comes into my house. And honestly, at this point, it's like, I felt like I was watching myself have this conversation. And I just remember it was a really hot summer day. I was wearing shorts. I don't know why I remember that. And I had the police officer come into my living room, and he starts asking me all of these questions. Have you talked to Xavier today? When's the last time you saw him? What has his mood seemed like over the last couple of days, weeks, months? And I'm telling him, and I'm like, do you know where he is?
Yeah.
And
you're asking the police officer that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, I'm happy to tell you this information, but like, I really need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And he says, we found a body.
Oh, honey. So sorry.
I asked him, like, is it Xavier? And they said, we can't tell you that yet because we haven't identified him. They hadn't had someone come in to identify him. And so they asked if I would come down to the police station. Sure, why not? At this point, I'm like, I'm just totally, I know that they found his body, obviously.
Yeah.
But they just keep saying they can't tell me until someone identifies him. And so I called his best friend, or one of his best friends, and was like, can you just come over and like come with me? And so went down to the police station, talked to the police for what felt like forever, until they finally said, like, yeah, it's him. They identified his body. He had, so all of that day I had been texting him and saying, like, please tell me that that what you said last night wasn't serious. I'm really worried about you. Just like, I don't feel good about this. And he kept brushing me off and telling me that I was being, not that I was being anything, but that he had been joking. I don't need to worry. He's not going to do anything. It's fine. He was just being dramatic, which was very unlike him, which was why I was so uneasy about it.
Yeah.
And come to find out, he had gone home, gotten his dad's gun, driven up to a hiking trail location, which was very close to a family friend's house. And that family friend, their son, who had been very good friends with Xavier, had jumped off the roof of his dorm building.
Oh my God.
A couple of years before, maybe a year, 2 years before. And so he had gone up to this spot and shot himself, and he was found by two hikers, or just like, and when I say hikers, they were hiking, but this is certainly not a remote location. So they were just like people out for a trail walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was one of the I don't even have the words for what that was. It was one of the, it split my life into two pieces.
Yeah.
Before and after.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the worst part. So go ahead.
Well, just, did you have anyone? Did you have any support? Did you have anyone that you could go to that could help you and support you? Because I feel like, I
was going to say, let's talk about loss number 2. So at this point, I had a really good friend, my best friend, who actually had been my first boyfriend, my first love, really one of the only people I had ever fully trusted to just always be there for me. And he was always there for me. And he and I had been really good friends during my relationship with Xavier. He knew Xavier. He would come visit and hang out with me, and like sit, Xavier would be there, or like, it was all good. We would talk on the phone like once a week, once every 2 weeks. We would end each conversation with like, all right, love you, like talk to you soon. Like, he was just the closest person I had in my life, even though it was no longer a romantic relationship. And so I called him from the police station, and he didn't answer, and I just kept calling because I was obviously not in my right state of mind. Called on repeat until he finally answered. And when he did, I obviously was just sobbing and hyperventilating, and I told him what happened. And so he stayed on the phone with me and, told me that he loved me, that he was going to help me get through it, that like, he would be there for me. He lived a couple hours away. He was going to drive up. He would visit. Like, it would be okay, or as close to okay as it could be. And so I said, okay, thank you. And I thought, like, okay, I'm going to have this person who has been like a pillar for me for a long time come and help me. And he was the only person I wanted to see or hear from or talk to, because he was really the only person I trusted wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And had he been part of your religion? Was he part of that group?
No, he hadn't been part of that group, actually. And then he never talked to me again.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I guess that's not true. I shouldn't say he never talked to me again. About 8 years after the fact, he told my friend to tell me hello because she ran into her, and I sent him a message, and he sent me one message back. And when I responded, then he just dropped off the face of the earth again. So that was something. Like, I don't want to say that was harder than losing Xavier, but it was
Well, it's insult to
It was just a
injury.
different hard.
Yeah. And when you think, who do I trust? Oh, there's one person. Yep. There's one person I trust. And they even say, don't worry, I'll be there. Don't worry, I'll help you through it. And then they disappear. That is crazy. So you, to this day, you don't even know what the rationale was or if there was any rationale.
Nope. And this was about 10 years ago.
So
10 years ago.
So how did you make it through, Jesseca?
I mean, to be honest, that's not even the full story of it. His friends also called me the night of his funeral and told me it was my fault that he killed himself. And yeah, like,
oh my God. And you're 21. You're 21.
I was just barely 21.
And you're also have been brought up in an environment that tells you you're bad and wrong and you're sinful. So then the person you love kills themselves, and then the people say it was your fault.
Yep. And then his family also stopped talking to me. And I don't actually even blame them for not talking to me, because like, I can't imagine how hard it would be to lose your son and then to see this girl that he was always with around, especially considering that one of our last interactions had been
this huge fight.
Fraught. Yeah. And like, there had been so many things slung back and forth, and like, you know, I had said, oh, you pushed me, and then people heard that and thought I was accusing him of being like, you know, like abusive, and it was a disaster through and through. But honestly, his family, I will stand by the fact that like whatever they needed to do to get through it was fine. And I have absolutely no hard feelings towards them whatsoever. I hope that they're doing well, and that they're healing. They deserve that.
This very compassionate and mature response you have to their reaction, was that something you had then, or that's something you've come to?
So,
I mean, probably in the midst of it, you go ahead. At first,
with the response to his family, at first I was, of course, hurt that I was just being shut out. But I sort of have always been of the belief system that like they're experiencing a loss that I can't imagine. And if this is hurting me this profoundly, like I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like to lose a son in that way. And so really they were very low on my, like, I don't want to say they were low on my like blame list, because I didn't blame them at all. But like when it came to like who I was hurt by,
there was
all I could think was they're doing everything they can to just survive. And that's
so that's
okay.
I have to say though that's pretty amazing that you were able to have that awareness then. So how did you myriad of horrible things, of unspeakable things.
It was a really bad day.
It was a really bad day. It was a really bad day. Yeah. How did you make it through? Where did you find your strength? Where did you find support?
Well, oh God, I have to just give you this brief anecdote, because I think you'll appreciate it. So the night of it wasn't his funeral. It must have been like his wake or something. A bunch of us went out to a restaurant, to a bar, and I was just sitting at the bar, and the bartender said something to the effect of like smile or something. He was just trying to be he didn't tell me to smile, but it was just something of like, why so glum?
Yeah, why the long face? And I was like,
I'm just having a bad day. Like I'm having a really bad day. And he was like, oh, come on, like your day couldn't have been that bad. And I was like, I just left my boyfriend's wake. And he was like, okay. Okay. So just imagine the deadpan that I give, but like being told that like, yeah, my boyfriend killed himself and I just left his wake. So are we really going to have like a bad day competition? Like, just give me a drink. Like, I don't want to like, please.
Let's not have the bad day competition, because I've got you fucking beat.
Right, exactly. Like, you're not going to win this one, bud. So just,
oh my God.
Just relax. But anyway, so all of this was happening, and something else that I had been taught in the church was very much that like when you're at your lowest and you're most brokenhearted and you know, whatever, that's where God will meet you. because I was always taught that like sometimes you have to be at your very lowest in order to glorify God, or in order for God to like meet you in that place, and he's close to the brokenhearted, and yada 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 yada. And so I thought, okay, like this is certainly, I don't think there's not much lower that is going to go at this.
Yeah. And you've been
and
waiting. You've been waiting for God to talk back. So now's
like,
your moment.
Dog, like what's
God.
going on?
Yeah.
And a couple of things happened. One, it was like, it's very hard to believe in an all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God who has a plan for everything. When you are coming off of the back of your boyfriend shooting himself in the head, and then your best friend ghosting you, and then the friend group that you had for over a year blaming you and dropping you.
My God.
And yeah, I mean, and there's many other things that happened that I'm leaving out for the sake of, length.
We should have had a two-parter.
Lord have mercy.
We should have had a two-parter.
Sorry. I'm trying to
Don't
get
be
back
sorry.
on
Don't be sorry.
on the train here. But I decided to go to something called Youth with a Mission, YWAM, and it's basically a Christian organization where they take young people anywhere from teens up until, I would probably say, probably like 25, and you go to a Bible school, which is not really a Bible school, but you do like a 3-month Bible intensive thing, and then you go on a missions trip. And I don't really know why I thought I should do this. I think I thought, well, I need to get out of here. Maybe if I go dedicate myself to serving the Lord, he'll finally connect with me and meet with me and like give me some
he'll finally return my calls.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe he'll call back. Shit. Like we have answering machines. I'm just pretending like he called and didn't leave a message.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I'll do that. Lord knows. So I went to Switzerland for 3 months and did my Bible school. And then I went to, of all places, on my missions trip, Ireland. Side note, I love Ireland. I would love to go back. I would not love to go back on a missions trip. Yeah, no, thank you. But while I was there, nothing. I had a miserable time. Like I didn't, and everybody at this Bible school, and no shade, no hard feelings, but they were all basically homeschoolers from the Midwest. And again, no shade to them, but like, I'm coming off of these very traumatic events.
Right. You didn't find your people. You weren't like, no. Yeah. You were
I had
like
tattoos. I had short multicolored hair. Like I was not one of them. So
it was like that. What doesn't belong in this picture thing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like what's she doing
one of these
there?
Things is not like the other.
Right.
And so also during this time, my grandmother passed away. And I was like, all right, I've had enough. I've seen enough. I've seen everything I need to see. I would like to go home. So I left early. And if anyone that knows me knows that getting me to leave a European country early is a miracle, because I would live there if I could.
Yeah.
So eventually I came home early. And I was pretty disillusioned with everything, but especially the fact that I had gone all the way across the world, basically, in this like pursuit of a God that was supposed to love me and was supposed to be there for me and was supposed to meet with me, that just couldn't seem to be bothered with me.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'd had enough people in my life that couldn't be bothered with me that I just thought,
my God,
this isn't right. Like something isn't right. And so I came back and I knew that I wanted to go back to school. And I ended up, I had been friends with one of my teachers from high school. She was a very young teacher in high school, and we had connected and we stayed friends. And she's actually the reason that I ended up going to Mills. And a promise that I made to myself after Xavier died and while I was sort of healing was that I was going to do all of the things that scared me. Because I had felt like I had been living just really small and really controlled by fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear of all of these things. And now that I'm older, looking back on these experiences, it makes total sense why I had all of this fear. But at the time, I just felt like I'm not doing anything because I'm scared that it's not going to work, as opposed to trying it. And so this is what motivated me from going from fuck no, I'm not majoring in that, to going back the next day and saying, all right, I'll do it. Sorry.
Don't be sorry, honey. Don't be sorry.
And that is actually the reason that I did a number of other things. I became a CrossFit coach. I started weightlifting competitively. I took an internship that I was terrified of. And it was all incredibly rewarding. It was some of the best choices I've ever made. But people say like they're living for two people, and I feel that way a lot. But I don't think it's living. It doesn't feel like living for two people. It feels like trying to live enough life. I don't even know how to phrase it. It just feels like you're trying to make up so many experiences and so much ground. And the void is impossible to fill. It doesn't matter how much you do. It doesn't matter how many things you try, how many things you say yes to. There's always that missing person that can never be replaced, no matter how much you live.
Oh, honey.
Yeah, so sorry, you're asking how I got through it. And the answer, honestly, is that I don't really know. I certainly had friends, I don't want to discount them, that especially during the early stages would come and make sure I was okay, bring me stuff. But as anybody that's experienced loss, and I'm sure if you've experienced loss, after the first month, everybody's life goes back to normal.
Yeah.
And your life doesn't go back to normal.
Yeah. Well, and especially the way it happened, it's not like, the way you lost Xavier, after the fight, after so many texts, after, so then you lose him, then you lose the friend, that one friend, then you lose the friend group. So it's just loss. And then I'm guessing, or I'm filling in a blank, that you also lost this, you sort of gave up this idea that there's this God that's going to someday come along and take you by the hand and say, yeah, you're okay. I got you, Jesseca. Yeah. You get to be in this group. You're a part of this group. So the loss was loss piled on loss. And I will say that's beyond anything that what you're describing to me is beyond anything that I've experienced. I'm glad for that. I just want to take little baby Jesseca in my arms and hold her, because it's so heartbreaking. And I am trusting that you worked on this a lot in therapy. Oh, absolutely. And there's still times I work on it. And of course there is. Of course there is. Of course there is. Because the trauma is so big, and to have happened when it happened and how it happened, and because of who you were when it happened. I mean, it's so much. It's so big. And I just want to tell you, and I know you know this, but I want to say it again. Wasn't your fault. Wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
Wasn't your fault. Wasn't your fault.
That is something that I certainly, I know fault. That it's just, it took me a long time to transfer that knowledge from my brain to my heart. From knowing that you can't control other people's actions, to really understanding that if it hadn't been that, it would have been something else. And part of the reason that I speak so openly about it is that I never knew anybody that had experienced this kind of loss. And like, I'm glad that they hadn't. But also, I really needed somebody that had a clue, just a clue on how to manage any of this, because nobody did. And I was getting a lot of, and people, something I will stand by until the day I die is that sometimes you should just shut the fuck up and sit with somebody. Like, that's it. But I didn't need anybody telling me that like it's going to get better. I didn't need anybody telling me that everything happens for a reason. I mean, I genuinely had someone tell me like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I looked them dead in the eye and said, it killed him. Like, just be quiet. And that's not because I think people mean well.
Oh,
Absolutely,
they do. It's like, where's the, where's the rule book for that? There's rule book for how do you help someone who's gone through this kind of loss? What do you say? People don't know what to say.
Absolutely.
Because how do you know? How do you know what to say? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, part of that is that now when I know people that have lost their partners in different ways, but it's, that experience has allowed me now to say, like, there's nothing that I can say that's going to make this better. There's nothing. But I'm here and I'll sit with you whenever. I'll sit with you. I'll hold your hand. I'll hug you. I will let you tell every story you have about this person. Because sometimes when you lose someone, that's all you want to do is just talk about the memories because it helps you feel close to them. And at a certain point, people start to get tired of it. I will never get tired of hearing people's memories. Never. But yeah.
Well, I don't even have to ask you. Normally I ask, what would you say to somebody? But I feel like you just gave such really, really good advice just to sit with someone, just to listen. Sometimes you can even just say, what is it that you need? What do you need?
Absolutely.
I mean, my best friend had breast cancer and she's fine now. But, when she was going through chemo, I would go to her house and I would say, just tell me what you need. Do you want me to tell you stupid stories and distract you? I can do that. Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to braid your hair? I will do whatever you want. You tell me.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
And so what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Like, I'm not the one to say that.
God doesn't give you more that you can handle. Like, it's like when I used to hear that, it's like, what about the people that are in insane asylums, or I know that's a very old fashioned term, or have killed themselves? I think God gave them more than they could handle. I'm guessing. Right. I'm guessing. Just a guess.
Shot in the dark.
Yeah. So, and I think what's great is to hear you be able to say, this is what I needed. And that maybe if you know someone who's had a big loss, maybe that might be what they need too.
Yeah. Because I distinctly remember telling the people that were closest to me, like, I don't want to hear that it's going to get better. Like, I know that if you stay alive long enough, things will heal, or at least won't be as painful. But right now, I am so deep in a pit that, like, hearing that it's going to get better just makes me want to throw you out of my window.
Yeah. And it has no meaning. Like, it has no meaning because this is where I am now. This is where I am now.
Exactly.
Well, I just thank you so much for that. I did not see that coming. And I don't know how I would see that coming, but it was really so heartbreaking and beautiful. And I just think that, I was going to say you're such a strong person. And I think that, strength, using that expression can be misinterpreted because, I think one of the strongest things one can do is be vulnerable. And so you do have this huge willingness to be vulnerable and be real and to not know and I've seen all that in your TikTok feed and so that willing to be vulnerable, willing to be honest. It's such a gift to other people because it gives other people permission to be vulnerable because being stoic. You know, I always say the size of the thickness of your armor, the thickness of my armor was in direct proportion to the thickness of my wound. And I needed a very big armor to survive what I went through. And it took a long time for that armor to be taken off. And you have survived that. And you, to me, are a person who's thriving and who's
doing my best,
who's funny and smart and is a giving person, continues to be a giving person. And that's pretty amazing because there's a lot of different ways you could have gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of different.
I certainly used to feel like being tough and cold and hard was strength. And I was that way for some time. But I realized that, there's a quote, and I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it basically says something about being soft in a hard world is strength. And it's something that I've really sort of clung to because, I could be hard and I could pretend like nothing hurts and I don't have to be vulnerable about anything. But who is that helping? Who is that serving? How is that making the world any better in any way? And so I have tried my best to be honest and vulnerable about these things because I want to be able to be there for other folks that are either A, experiencing some loss or some severe loss, or B, are in the same place of pain that he was. But that he didn't feel comfortable to reach out to people and get that help. And so now, and that's just who I am now. And I'm grateful that whatever, powers that be, whatever people that came along in my life have allowed me to be that way. And I really think that actually a lot of the teachers that I had in college, because it was so close after, are part of the reason that I ended up healing because
Fantastic.
they held so much space for me.
That's so great.
I will never ever be able to repay them for that. So,
but you know what? They don't need to be repaid because that's, especially teachers, people that go into that field for the right reasons, that's why they're there, to give that space and to be, and that's their gift. That is the gift that they get to have is seeing Jesseca, seeing 23-year-old Jesseca and seeing her pain and seeing her talents and seeing her potential and going, oh, let's give her some room. Let's give her some guidance, Oh, you killed me. You killed me.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Okay. So we end with 3 questions. Okay.
I
should have told you, bring some tissues, honey.
I don't really cry that frequently. So I was, it caught me off guard. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder why. You cried. Pretty fucking sad story, honey. Man. Okay. I'm a crier.
It's just a bad day.
I'm a bad weeper. A big weeper. So we have 3 questions.
Okay.
Is there something you hope to lose in the next year?
Yeah, I'd love to lose my full-time job so that I can become a famous YouTuber. No.
Okay. Why not? Yeah. Why not? Okay. Ding. And so it shall be. I got you with my magic wand. Okay. Something you hope to gain in the next year.
I would like to gain a wider platform to be able to sort of touch or help or interact or encourage more people with every part of my story. And if I could gain a way to do that and make a living, that would be my dream.
Gain more visibility, more reach. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. And is there something you hope you never lose?
There's lots of things that I hope that I never lose. Primarily all of my siblings. But outside of that, I hope that I never lose my ability to find humor in even some of the darkest places in life, because I deeply believe that laughter is healing.
Absolutely.
other people think what you're laughing at that moment is inappropriate, if you are the one going through it, you get to laugh at whatever you want.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of my favorite things about myself, is my ability to find humor and to laugh even when shit is
hitting the fan.
Abysmal. Yeah. Exactly.
Good. I love it. And that's I feel exactly the same way. Well, thank you so much, Jesseca, for coming on. This was fantastic. Thank you for sharing all that, and remind everybody what your socials are, where they can find you on TikTok, and about where they can find your new podcast and your YouTube channel.
Okay, so my TikTok is Queen of the Heathens. My Instagram is Queen of Heathens. My Twitter is Queen of Heathens. Although on my Instagram, it is the O and of is a 0. The easiest way to find me is TikTok, and then just click the Instagram button next to it. On YouTube, again, because we're newer, we might not show up in your search, but I do have it linked on my TikTok. But my show is called The Unholy Trinity, and it's TRINI-TEA.
And all of this, guys, will be in the notes. All of this will be in our notes.
Cool.
Yeah.
And our podcast is on Spotify. It's chaotic. It's informative. It's pretty much exactly what you would expect if you follow me on TikTok. So, Good. Yeah. I love it. Well, this was just fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I feel like you've probably got about quite a few more losing it stories. So maybe we'll have you back.
Yeah, if you need stories about losing it in ways that you did not expect, I'm your girl.
Well, thank you so much. This was fantastic.
Yes, I enjoyed myself.
Oh, good. Yeah, I made you tell that story. All right, dear. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. Well, that was really unbelievable. That was the most intense losing it story we've ever had. And Jesseca did a great job. It was long, but it needed to be long and riveting. And follow her on TikTok. You can make your way to Instagram and anywhere through her TikTok. You can follow her on TikTok. Everything about her is in the notes. And I do not have a letter from last week from Nadia Dreyer, the seal rescuer, because we're in this weird transition. But I will say that I'll have something next week. And in the meantime, be kind to yourself and others. And you know the ending. Please don't poop in the ocean. Bye.
Losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it. You came and you listened to the story. I hope so much that it didn't make you sorry, and I hope so much that you'll come back again.
Losing It, hosted by Nelsie Spencer, produced by me, Ronnie Whaley. Theme song by Hunter Williams. Follow us online on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all podcasting platforms at Losing It Podcast. Viewers can email Nelsie with questions or comments about life, writing, comedy, or even your own losing it story for a chance to be on the Losing It Podcast at losingitcontact@gmail.com. For everything Nelsie and everything Losing It, visit us at nelsiespencer.com.